All right, so said we're going to talk about trig identities today. So with this, here is our first set of identities. And we've already talked about these before, but I didn't really give them a name for it. So here you go. So we said already that when it comes to cosecant, secant, and cotangent, it's just flipping sine, flipping cosine, flipping tangent. Same thing for sine, cosine, and tangent. Sine just flips the value of cosecant. Cosine flips the value of secant. Tangent flips the value of cotangent. So if you know sine, you should be able to figure out cosecant. If you know cosecant, you should be able to find sine. Should always happen like that. So no matter what, know these together. And remember, the S's and the C's never S's and the C's always go together. So here, like there's an S right here and a C here. And then a C and an S. S and a C. And a C and an S. So again, there are no S's together. So it's not sine and secant. No two S's. It's an S and a C. S, C, and an S. So with that, make sure you know that when you do these again, make sure that sine is with cosecant and cosine is with secant. And then cotangent and tangent, this should make sense. Go together. All right, so that's one set. Remember those, know those. And here's another set. These are our quotient identities. Because I actually gave you these when we talked about the graphs of tangent and cotangent. I wrote those on the board or the screen, and I had them for you, and I told you to write them down. So I'm pulling those back out again. And so here with our sine and cosine, sine over cosine is tangent, and cosine over sine is cotangent. And again, you got to remember those. Just remember them. They're what you have to know. You have to know them. All right, and then there's one last one. The last one are our Pythagorean identities. Now, these are the ones you're going to have to kind of remember together. They're not really hard to remember either, but you have to remember these. So sine and cosine together, sine squared plus cosine squared equals 1. Tangent squared plus 1 equals secant squared. And then 1 plus cotangent squared equals cosecant squared. Now, with each one of these, we can actually prove these out. I'm going to do that at a later date because you can use the sine squared plus cosine squared equals 1 to find tangent squared plus 1 equals secant squared, and the 1 plus cotangent squared equals cosecant squared. You can use them to be able to figure out the other two. So with that, I'm going to talk about that later. I'm going to do that later. But with this, again, know them. You have to know these Pythagorean identities. So if you have to quiz yourself, if you have to make flashcards or whatever you have to do to make sure you remember these and have people test you and all that stuff, whatever you got to do, make sure that you know these trig identities so that when we get to examples, you would know exactly how to do them, or when we get to things later on, you would know what to do without verifying. So again, know these rules. These are trig identities.